It's me, Juan from 100% Finance at 100percentfinance.com. Just doing a quick live. Just want to try something different this new year. And it's in regard to things you need to be aware of when closing on your first real estate deal. And that's really important, right? So starting out, it can be tough. It can be tough. It can be tricky, right? When you're just getting started, because you're thinking that, oh, this might be a deal, so I should just go ahead and pull the trigger and get started. So I applaud you for that if you're an action taker, because some people, they like to do extreme analysis, and the old saying, analysis paralysis, where they don't really do nothing to get started. But you're in the mindset of, it's 2018, I don't want another year to go by without me closing on my first property. So if you're in that mindset, that's a great mind state to have. But there are some things you need to do in your first deal. So, and I'm pretty much coming up with this content as a result of the comments that I received from everyone on social media. And one thing I get from people is, hey, it looks like it's cash flowing, bro. The cap rate is high, the cash flow is great, I'm gonna move forward with it. One of the things you need to be aware of right off the bat is the neighborhood. First thing I always analyze, just to be clear, are the numbers. I want to make sure the numbers work. I want to make sure I get a good cash on cash return that is profitable, without using with using little to none of my own money in the deal. So that's the first screening. But the second screening is I want to make sure the neighborhood is safe, because you don't want to be investing in D areas. Those, I got to tuck my chain in, I'm scared to walk around this neighborhood at night. Because if you buy a property that's cash flowing, but it's in a bad neighborhood, that will be a huge headache for you. And that was a headache for me. The second property I bought, which was in 2010, it was a single family house. It was somewhat distressed, had to do some repairs on it. But I bought it using my personal credit card, which is a no-no. And that's another thing to be aware of. Don't use personal credit cards for buying properties whatsoever. That would jack up your debt to income ratio. You don't want to do that. I learned from that mistake the hard way. And in 2011, I bought 0 deals, because that whole year I had to pay down the personal credit card debt in order to buy another property. So don't ever use personal credit cards for real estate. But back to what I was saying. So the second property I bought was in a D area. D as in dangerous. Low income, but high crime. But I thought, I'm buying at an extreme discount, because the property was worth, or I purchased it at $10,000. And I put about $17,000. No, I think it was about $30,000 in total. You include all costs, repairs and closing costs and all that good stuff. So it's about $30,000 in total. And I'm thinking, oh, this property is cheap, and I can get $821 a month in rent. I'm like, that's nothing. Buy a $30,000 property, and I receive $800 in rent. And if you apply the 1% rule, meaning the purchase price, the monthly rent should be 1% of the purchase price. So if the purchase price is $10,000, you at least you're supposed to get is $100 in rent. But I was getting $821. So I thought, man, this is some crazy cash flow, and it was. It still is. I still own that property today. My PI is about $300, and the rent is $821. So I'm cash flowing about $500 from this property. But in the beginning, that property was in a bad neighborhood. So even though I bought it at a decent price and I was cash flowing, it was a headache to manage. I had break-ins after break-ins after break-ins. And it wasn't like it was quote-unquote thugs breaking in. It was just teenagers, pretty much. Teenagers breaking in to find a place to skip school and smoke some illegal substances, if you catch my drift. But being that they broke in, I had to always replace the locks. I had to always replace the windows, and I always had to fix the door. Or it was such a bad neighborhood, it attracted a badder tenant, a worse tenant. And when you attract worse tenants, they don't upkeep the property. And the property is dirty, and the property attracts rodents. So who has to pay for the rodent bill? The owner, right? So it was just a lot of bad things happening. Or if you find a good tenant in that property and there's break-ins, they just move out. And they're like, hey, I don't have to put up with this. And you just get a vacancy overnight. No prior notice whatsoever. So that's the first thing you need to be aware of when closing on your first real estate deal is the location. So I said first, let me repeat, excuse me guys. The first thing is you got a cash flow. The second thing you have to be aware of is the location. Just because the cash flow is in a bad area, that's not a good deal. Okay? Don't think that, oh, I'll just hire property management and won't be in my plate. That'll be their problem to deal with. No, it'll be your problem as the owner. All right, the next thing I have that you need to be aware of outside of the financials, the cash flow, the neighborhood, is the contingencies. I see a lot of beginning real estate investors, they get a property under contract, but do they actually verify all the numbers? And if they do verify the numbers and they find out the numbers are bad, such as, let's say the rents, to give you an example, let's say the rent says 70,000 for the year, but you verify and it says 63,000. It was a multifamily. Well, in that case, it would be wise for you to be able to renegotiate the deal. And if the seller is unwilling to renegotiate, then you want to be able to back out of the deal, no harm, no foul, right? But if you don't have that contingency in place in regard to like the due diligence, whether it's financial or physical due diligence, or backing out if you realize that there's a lot of repairs that are needed, or backing out because you can't get qualified for a mortgage, you're gonna have these right contingencies. Or if the appraisal come back lower than the purchase price, you gotta be able to have these extra trades to exit out of the deal. But I see a lot of beginning real estate investors, they will move forward with getting a deal in the contract. Let's say the financials were good to go, the property's in a decent neighborhood, low income but low crime, but they don't put those contingencies after they perform due diligence. And then guess what happens? If they back out of the deal, they don't get their earnest money deposit back, their hand money, which is like their good faith deposit. Normally when you buy a property, put on a contract, you provide a check saying, hey, here's $2,000 letting you know I want to put this property in the contract, and this will be credit towards the down payment. But if you don't have those contingencies in place, then normally in that situation you end up forfeiting your earnest money deposit. So that's another thing you need to be aware of, is making sure you have sound contingencies in your contract. Okay, and there's several contingencies you need to have. The other thing I have that you need to be aware of is sticking to your guns, not compromising. So just to piggyback off the contingencies, one contingency I have is a seller got to provide me with all his docs, in order for me to move forward with providing my earnest money deposit. But oftentimes, a real estate investor is involved in this transaction, and a real estate investor is motivated to get paid. So they're going to reach out to you, the buyer, and say, yo, when you going to send us hand money? Hey, if you don't send us hand money, man, I got another person who's ready to buy this deal. It's a good deal. I know you want it. So they try to use these scare tactics. And you, being a novice, a newbie, you're like, all right, here we go. Here's the check. I'm going to write the check. Even though the seller didn't do his part and provide the docs. And you got to stick to your guns. Because one thing I always say is, hey, real estate agent, I know it's important for me to send this earnest money deposit. I have no problem sending it. Here it is right here. But the least the seller can do is send me the docs. That's free. Just send the docs that I'm requesting. Send the docs, I'll send the money. But if he can't even send a few documents, some paperwork, why are you getting on my case about a check? You want this check, don't you? If so, then get those documents from the seller. You need to be on his back, not mine. I can easily bring my end of the bargain to the table. Make sure the seller bring his or her end bargain to the end of the table by providing me with the docs that are outlined in the contract. And if you're not able to stick to your guns in that situation and not compromise, then you will get taken advantage of. And especially in regards to the repairs too. So if I find out there's a lot of repairs on the property, I'm going to negotiate a credit so that I and my team and I should say will do the repairs. But sometimes the seller tries to finesse and say, hey, I'll do it. Why would you let the seller do it? Because it's ridiculous. Because if you let the seller do it, he might not do an adequate job. Because he'll do the repairs the cheapest way as possible, as quickly as possible, so he can close as quickly as possible. And he can care less about making sure the repairs are done in an adequate manner and they're durable, because he's no longer going to be owning it. So he's incentivized to use the cheapest material and the cheapest labor possible. So you got to be able to stick to your guns and say, no, I'm going to credit, my team and I are going to do these repairs. Point blank, period. So there's a lot of other things you need to be mindful of in regard to doing your first deal, such as, well, what are those contingencies, right? Or, hey, what are those documents that you request from the seller? Hey, you said the 1%, well, what does that mean exactly? Or you said it has the cash flow. What do you mean cash flow? How much? You said cash on cash return. What is the cash on cash return you should aim for? You said low income, low crime. So how do you verify the crime rate? How do you know if it's in a good area? How do you know if it's in an A area or a D area? Where do you gather this information? Well, all that stuff's in our new product we're rolling out. That's the first deal. So for 2018, I realized a lot of people had questions about how do I close on my first deal, and it's important, right? And in my opinion, that's the most important thing is to close on your first one. Because once you gain that first deal, then you'll be able to gain some traction. It's just like trying to push a car that's in neutral. It's hard. It takes all your mind, all your strength just to push it. But once you start gaining momentum, then you see, oh, it gets easier and easier, and then momentum is on your side, and you'll see like you'll start making some moves. So it's the same thing with real estate. Once you get past that first deal, you push forward closing that first deal. Each deal you do thereafter gets easier and easier and easier to the point momentum is on your side. Where you have a team of real estate agents, you have a team of a money team, your business credit cards, you have a team of deal finders and so forth, making this process much smoother for you. So that's one thing I highly recommend. So those are a few things I want to give. Just want to do a couple lives just to give you some insight on closing on your first deal, things that you need to be aware of, okay? Because you want to make sure you dot all your I's and you cross all your T's. Don't just think, oh, I'll just get started and I'll just do whatever seems right to me. No. I had a mentor when I first did my deals, and I made sure I had another set of eyes. A wise person has a team of counselors advising him before he goes to war. A fool thinks he's smarter than 7 advisors. This stuff is biblical. It's in the book of Proverbs. So it's like, well, why would you get started with something brand new without counsel? It's foolish, right? I have a team of counselors. I have a real estate attorney. That's my counselor. Because people ask me, well, how do you know the right entity to form when buying a multifamily property? I don't. But I have a counselor named a real estate attorney called a real estate attorney who will advise me in that matter. All right. So you want to make sure you have a board of advisors, in other words, whether it's for raising capital, that can be business credit, or whether it's for the real estate market, that could be a real estate agent, and so forth. All right. So just want to give you some quick tips. So if you guys are interested in learning more, just go to our website at 100percentfinance.com, and you should be able to see the links that relate to real estate investing. All right. So I'm out just at the office, just doing a little bit of work. Just want to do a quick video because I was looking at some comments and people just mentioned about that. What are some things I need to be aware of when buying my first real estate rental property? And there you have it. You gotta know the financials. You gotta look over the neighborhood. You also gotta look at the contingencies. Make sure your contract is sound. You also gotta stick to your guns. Okay. And the last thing I'll add is having sound exit strategies. Because if you're using 100% financing, and some of this financing may be expensive, some of this financing may have a maturity date. It could be seller financing, it could be a private money lender who lent you money, it could be hard money if you're using hard money, or it could be business credit. And you want to be knowledgeable of how you're going to exit out this expensive financing. Because you don't want to use this expensive financing to get you in the door, to close on the deal, in other words, but you have no sound exit strategy to back out. And you want to make sure you have not just one extra strategy, but at least 3 different extra strategies in place before you sign on the dotted line on that contract. And that's one thing I always aim to do. When you walk in the front door of any property, how can I get out the back door? Maybe the window, maybe I can go through the basement. You want to do the same thing with financing. If I use this debt to get me into this deal, how am I going to back out of that? I need at least 3 extra strategies so that I can exit out this financing before this financing matures. And that's another thing you need to be aware of on your first deal. If you're using expensive financing or you're financing 100%, you gotta have extra strategies in place. Now, I'll end close with this. The last tip I'll give you, okay? 3 criteria for analyzing the property. 3. Has the cash flow. First and foremost, this is an order of importance. Has the cash flow. Second, you have to get it 100% financed. That way, you're being an entrepreneur and you're obtaining an income producing asset using little to none of your own money. That's what 100% finance is all about. That's what that means. And the third thing is you got to be able to improve the value so that you can implement your extra strategies. Okay? And we have a webinar for those of you who are interested in learning how to close on your first deal. Now, this webinar is actually free. It's about almost 2 hours in length. It's an hour and 50 minutes in total. But if you watch the webinar, it will show you how you can close on your first deal in 12 weeks or less, using lease options, as well as wholesaling. Lease options is a way that you take control of a property without technically buying it. So there's no big down payment required. Everything's negotiable. You're just having a lease over a property. You're the master tenant with the ability to sublease it to another tenant. That's what people use for multifamily. That's called master lease option, or even single family. That's just a lease option. Or they use another creative form of lease option, which is a sandwich lease option, where you have the seller, you having a lease with this guy, and you sublease it to another tenant buyer. Okay, but all that's included in this webinar. And wholesaling is you get the property under contract at a discount, right? And you assign that contract to an end buyer, like me. I'm a buy and hold investor, and I flip occasionally. So if I see a good deal and I realize that you got the property under contract, I wouldn't mind paying you $5,000 for that deal, especially if I have the potential to cash flow $500 a month, or have the potential to flip it and gain $35,000 as a profit. So why would I be mad if you made $5,000 spread for being the middleman? And being the middleman or the wholesaler in that scenario, your credit doesn't come into play, neither does huge cash reserves. The only thing that comes into play in that situation is you being savvy as a marketer, as well as you being savvy as a networker. You're marketing for these good deals, you find a motivated seller, and you have a networker, you're a networker, you have a great network that you have buyers who can close the deal. So that's what that 2-hour webinar is about. So if you're interested, just go to the website, 100%finance.com, and you should be able to get access to the webinars. There's a button on the homepage for you to watch. All right? So that's my gift to you. Just want to start this new year off right by providing value to you guys, people who follow me on YouTube, on Facebook, and IG. I appreciate your viewership. I greatly appreciate it. Like I said before, it's an honor for people who find what you have to say valuable. So I appreciate that you find what we have to offer here at 100% is value. So that's the reason why you follow us. And if you continue to find value, just do me a favor, just like it or share it, and just subscribe. So we got more to come this fiscal year. So we're doing things a little bit differently at 100% Finance, trying to make things a bit more professional. And I urge all you guys, all you entrepreneurs out there, focus on quarters. That's important, because as entrepreneurs, you probably notice you want to do everything up front. You're like, oh, I want to do forex trading. Oh, I also want to do stocks and bonds. Oh, I also want to do cryptocurrency. Oh, I also want to do real estate. I want to do real estate. I want to wholesale. I want to do this. We want to do all these many things, right? We're multifaceted. Not to say we can't do all these things, because I have multiple businesses. I have a property management business. I have a real estate portfolio, and I have an online business. So I get it. We can all be multifaceted. But keep in mind, you want to do things on a quarterly basis. So if you say, hey, quarter one, January 1st to March 31st, 2018, I'm only going to be focused on this one thing, my first deal. Quarter two, I'm only going to be focused on the next thing, which is this. Quarter three, if you break it down like that and you're willing to delay some things that you want to do, just put it on the top shelf and revisit that later. Trust me, it will do wonders for your business. And that's one thing I had to learn, and that's what I'm doing now in 2018. I was the same person. I wanted to do so many things at once, and I realized I was a jack of all trades and a master of none, because I didn't spend enough time on certain things. So now I'm doing that. Like, hey, if priority is just this one particular thing this quarter, that's all I'm focused on. And that means I have to say no to a few things. And it could be opportunities. And no, not meaning I can't do it, period, but no meaning not yet. That's what no means to me. Some of you guys might be familiar with sales. It's just not, a no doesn't mean it's permanent, it's just not yet. So if I say no to an opportunity, not yet, but I can look at this opportunity in quarter three. Okay, so keep that in mind this year. And I want you guys to be prosperous this year, closing on some deals, but I want you guys to take action. Take smart action with counsel, and that's how I move. If I realize, you know what, I'm doing a decent job, I can do a better job, how can I get someone to counsel me? Because I pay for counselors, because you need it. And you might be in a position right now where, hey, I can't afford to pay for counselors. This is one of them call me now. Shout out to Jerry. I have to call him back. But you might say, well, I'm not in a position now in which I can, let me go back to IG 1 second. Welcome back, IG. So you might be in a position where you're like, you know what, I really don't have the money to hire counselors. Well, get an ebook. but start picking people's brains that are local. You gotta do something, guys. You gotta be wise this year, and I would definitely say that act with wisdom this year. A wise man has a team of counselors, and that's what one thing I really stress. I want to have a team of people advise me on what I need to do. Okay. All right, guys. So I end up with that. I want to be too long-winded. Shout out to Shayla. What's up? Kale, who's a few people I know. John, Brittany, Ron. I know him too. Tyshawn. What you doing on Facebook, bro? You're supposed to be working, dog. All right, man. As always, guys, to your success, continue to earn passively, live passionately. And just check out the website again, 100%finance.com for the free 2-hour webinar, how to close on your first real estate deal in 12 weeks or less using lease options and wholesaling. All right, peace. Peace, peace, peace.